Hi, my name is Good Universe VA, and I play Vance on Zodiac Task Force, and you're listening to Raving Lunatic Media. Oh, yeah, Tropic says hi, too.
Warning. The following program contains content that is intended for mature audiences only and may be uncomfortable and triggering. Listener's discretion is advised. Male, 42. I like long lays on the beach, eating pasties, fun books, and being one of the most unsolvable cold cases ever. Or do I? I guess you'll have to find out. Aloha, everybody, and welcome to the returning season of Cold Case Chase. For any newcomers here on the show, I recount a slew of murderous and mysterious crimes that are unsolved, or I guess you could call them cold cases. Along with me today, we have a guest here, the writer of this season. We have Jon. What's up, Jon?
Always a pleasure to meet a Jedi.
Always a pleasure. Jon is the current writer for Cold Case Chase. He's been doing a slew of amazing work on all of this stuff, which has helped me tremendously.
What do they call that? Blowing smoke.
Yeah. It has been so nice to be able to not have to focus on the writing portion and just focus on doing all the rest of things. But Jon, are you excited about this?
I am indeed. I'm very excited to be here, and thanks for having me on to fill in for Shane.
Oh, yes. Shane will be back. However, we needed a quick guest spot, so Jono is going to fill in for us. If you guys remember the last case that we covered, it was O.J. Simpson and the murders of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman.
Ronald Goldman.
Ronald Goldman.
Here in the house.
Exactly. This week, we're going to a bit of a more, I guess you could say, closed case in a sense. We're talking about the Somerton Man, which is, we're going to be shifting gears and traveling back in time to 1948 to a beach in Australia. So I know, Jono, you know a lot about this case. I am fairly familiar with this case as well.
I do know. I knew nothing about it prior to this. I have no problem admitting that. Kind of like most of these cases, but this was definitely one of the most interesting discoveries for me, just doing the research and writing it. So I'm excited to talk about it.
I am too, because I just remember that this case just has so many weird things about it. Like you think it's going one way, and then it goes another, and then it twists and turns way too much. But this is a case that has mystified people for more than 7 decades.
Now, when we say people, we should clarify mostly the people of Australia.
Yes.
Hence my intro, my fake Australian accent.
Yes. The down under people there in Australia.
Yeah.
Who knows? There might actually, we might solve it. I mean, it kind of already is solved.
Well, we'll
somewhat.
just have to see.
Yeah, people will have to see on this one. So without further ado, let's dive right in.
Let's do it.
It all began on December 1st, 1948, on the Somerton beach in the suburban Adelaide, Australia. A young 16-year-old apprentice horse jockey named Neil Day and his friend were riding horses along the beach line when they passed a man laying in the sand. However, not suspecting anything, Neil and his friend pay almost no attention to it. Years later, Neil Day recounted this passing observation, saying, "We never took much notice because people used to sleep on the beach sometimes, especially if it was a warm night. He was dressed in a suit. I think it was a brown suit, if I remember right. His face was straight up, looking at the sky, laying on his back." First question of the day.
Yes.
Would you ever even... you're walking down the beach.
Mm-hmm.
I assume... I'm gonna say it's the Revere Beach. Because I know you're that's one that we are both semi near.
I live usually I go down to Cape Cod, one of those beaches, but sure. For the sake of arguments.
I like Revere because my friends live near Revere Beach, and it is one of the only ones I know.
Yes, sir.
You're walking down the beach, and you look to your right, and you see a man in a full 3-piece suit laying down. Are you like, yeah, that's normal?
Totally normal. You never know in this day and age. No, I'm kidding.
If I saw a dude laying down in a 3-piece suit, I would have a couple questions. I'm not a very fashionable person.
You would have that's why you would take a closer look at him to see if he's willingly lying on the beach in the suit, and look at and be able to tell the difference if he's asleep or dead. And these guys just assumed, oh, he's asleep. We're just gonna, in a suit. Let's just move on.
Like 1948 must have been a way different time.
They were lax. They were probably very lax.
Exactly. Like in order to sleep on a beach, your requirements are you must be in a 3-piece suit, I guess.
At least wear something over your nether regions,
Yeah. Be semi-clothed. That is the only requirement for sleeping on a beach.
Yeah.
The more clothed, the better prepared, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Barefoot is tolerated, but we prefer it. You wear socks and dress shoes, sir.
Yeah, loafers, right?
Yes. Yeah. So, yeah.
Continuing. Yes.
Yeah, all right, go.
The two young jockeys continued along for a couple kilometers south of Brighton before returning to the spot where the man was still laying. Neil Day would say later on, "When we came back, he was still in that same place. So we went over to see if he was all right. We couldn't see him breathing, so my friend Horry hopped off his horse and lifted his leg. He was dead. It was a bit of a shock because I'd never seen anyone like that before."
That's how you know how young this guy was.
Yeah. Like, here's my thing. Why did you lift the leg? Like, the leg is the heaviest part of the body, right?
Well, I don't know. Maybe he had really skinny legs. I mean, we don't.
The Somerton man skipped leg day. You heard it here first, gents.
Yeah. Skipping leg day to sit on the beach. To sleep on the beach and nothing inconspicuous here. Move along, gents.
This is what happens when you skip leg day.
I suppose so.
Yeah, that was the weirdest part about that to me, I guess. Other than him just not being fazed by a man laying in a suit on the sand.
Yeah.
And from the pictures I've seen of it too, like, he's really in that sand. Like,
I know. It's like, somebody tried to bury him, or is he like, yeah, I mean, well, which will, that will be what the theories are about, which we'll get to, but it's like, come on, it looks,
it looks a little weird.
Again, they probably saw him from a distance. It's like, suit guy,
Yeah. So yes, just like Day recounted, the man was, in fact, dead. He was also clean-shaven and wore a dry and neatly pressed suit and tie. Even more strangely, all of the tags on his clothes were gone, and he was found with no belongings or forms of identification. Later on, when checked, his fingerprints were not in any database, and no person came forward to identify him. Also, a post-mortem revealed that the man had an alarmingly enlarged spleen and internal bleeding from his stomach and liver. According to the coroner's report, there were no signs of violence or even any traces of poison in his system. Even common symptoms of poisoning, such as diarrhea, convulsions, or vomiting, were not found in the body. The coroner also found a pasty, or a British and Australian pastry, in his stomach. Quick fun fact.
Yeah, I know.
The first time I heard somebody say pasty, like the British are so silly, first of all.
Yeah.
But I thought they were talking about like the thing that you put like on a nipple, like a nipple pasty.
It sounded like a sticky note to me.
Yeah.
Or something like, it's a stick on. or, you know. Yeah, but sure, stick on your nipples or your wall, same difference.
Okay, listen, I do not condone this. Obviously, Raving Lunatic Media does not condone murder. But if you're going to murder somebody and leave a note about it, make them eat a sticky note. Like, I feel like that would be a weird clue that, like, only, like, somebody who's doing the autopsy would see. Just like, oh, you guys, we found this note in his stomach.
We discovered torn sticky notes in his intestines. We don't know quite how it got there. I think he was forced to swallow it.
It says, "Get good, scrubs." Don't know what that means, but because it's 1940, 48.
48.
Oh, goodness.
All right.
Ultimately, after the fact, the coroner stated in his investigation's official publication that I am unable to say who the deceased was. I am unable to say how he died or what was the cause of death. So essentially, this guy was useless.
Yeah. Coroners back then, I mean, that seems to be the general. I feel like that's going to be the general trend with a lot of the older cases. The coroners are just, I don't know if the science of it was quite as developed as it is nowadays. They're able to identify so much more. Back then, it was, they were pretty lax, or they didn't know what the fuck they were talking about.
Exactly. Like, what in the world was this guy doing? He was just like, yeah. It's like the weatherman. Like, the weathermen can't really 100% guarantee anything.
Right.
I'm unable to say who the deceased was, or how they died, or what killed them.
Hey,
you know what?
Hey, at least he's honest. At least he was honest.
I'm like 75% sure that this is a real person.
Right. He's not.
It's like, thanks for the brush up, Chief.
Yeah. Yeah. Facts of life. The sky is blue, and this man is dead. That is all I know. That is all I know.
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if the last part of that quote is, I'm pretty sure he's dead.
I'm pretty sure he's dead, but I don't know much else.
He could just be taking a long nap. Are you sure you didn't shake him hard enough? So, it seemed immediately like identifying the man and his cause of death came to a quick, dead end. Then, a month later, in January 1949, a suitcase containing dozens of items was uncovered in the cloakroom of the Adelaide railway station. It had been dropped off the day before the body was found and contained clothing with the labels removed and a wax thread sold outside of Australia. It was the type of thread used to repair the trousers found on the man's body. The indication given by many of the objects found in the case was that the man had recently been in the United States. There were two names found on some of the items: Keen, ending with a N, and Keen, ending with an NE. According to a newspaper from Adelaide, the authorities concluded that the name Keen had been left on these possessions to deliberately mask the man's true identity. You know what this case is actually starting to remind me a lot of?
What is that?
throwback to last season, but the Eastall woman. And she was a spy, and I solved that case.
You sure did.
I solved it, Jon. Don't take this away from me.
Hey, I'm not taking anything away, you know.
Don't mock me, Jon. I solved the Eastall woman.
Someone around the world probably also solved that case. Probably down in Australia, the better detectives down there. So, you know.
But it just reminds me a lot because just person found dead in random place. Person has no indication of who they are or the exact cause of death. And then this person, just like a suitcase is found belonging to this person with a whole bunch of random items in it that help hide a whole bunch of cool clues.
And probably a bunch of misdirecting details.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say, at very least, this guy got to see the U.S. apparently before he died. America.
Huh. America back then.
Maybe not the best America, but it was America.
Not the ideal America, but it was still our America.
Exactly. Then, in April 1949, 4 months after the body was found, the police happened upon a clue that had previously been overlooked. There was a secret pocket sewn into the waistband in the man's pants. And in that pocket was a rolled up piece of paper with the following Persian words typed onto the paper. Tamam Shud. The paper looked to be torn out from the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, or simply the Rubaiyat, which was a book of Persian poems from the 11th century. Themes central to the Rubaiyat have to do with the mere fleetingness of life, and in the English language, Tamam Shud roughly translates to the end, or finished. If that's not a foreboding message of the end of something, then who knows what it is? In fact, in response to these discoveries, Coroner Thomas Cleland made the following statement. I have considered the circumstances disclosed in the evidence, and I came to the opinion, taking all the circumstances into account, that death was almost certainly not natural, and in all probability that some poison had to have been taken with suicidal intent. So,
certainly seems that way, doesn't it?
Yeah, first of all, a lot of P's in that last little bit. Persian poems of the Rubaiyat.
It's a wonder that's not required elementary school reading.
Yeah, I wonder why.
Jeez.
Could you imagine a 4th grader walking up to you holding the Rubaiyat and just being like, hey, I'm reading this.
I think you should read this in reading class.
The fleetingness of life is ever coming closer to me.
Of course, Benjamin. We will discuss this at a later time. You could go back to lunch now. You must be starving.
Exactly. You're not you when you don't eat a Snickers. Not sponsored by Snickers, by the way. But this guy essentially, so this Thomas Cleland guy, I'm assuming different coroner from the original.
I believe so. I think they had a few multiple people examining the body or looking into. I think he took a special interest in the case as it was unfolding. I believe this is a different guy.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. So my thing with this guy, at very least, is he essentially goes the opposite direction of what the other guy did, with him essentially saying, I have looked at everything, and I'm not going to say that it was poison, but it was poison. I can't. I can't wait until the theories for this because it's gonna get crazy, and I know it is.
Right. Right.
But yeah, this guy like is just so certain that it was poison.
Well, even the part he said that death was almost certainly not natural. I'm like, you think? I'm like, tell that to the other coroner.
What gave it away?
I don't know.
Yeah,
it definitely wasn't the suit.
But continuing on. Oh wait, that gives a whole new meaning to kill him with style. Ooh, kill him! Ooh, kill him! No, not actually. No, not actually. So now, let's jump ahead to July 23rd, 1949. 3 months after the Tamam Shud paper being discovered. It was on this day that the police received a visit from a businessman and a chemist named John Freeman, who had read about the unknown body in the newspaper. Freeman arrived with a copy of the Rubaiyat, claiming he had found the book in the back seat of his car, which was parked near Somerton Beach with the windows down. Freeman handed the book over to the police, and they determined that a section had been torn out of the last page of the book, and it fit the page found in the man's pant pocket. On the back cover, there were 5 lines of letters, which looked to be like a secret code, and what also seemed to be a phone number. Both the police and the Australian Naval Intelligence tried to break the code, but to no avail, even to this day. Let's get a quote now from the Naval Intelligence, who said, "There is an insufficient number of letters for a definite conclusion to be based on analysis, but the indications together with the acceptance of the above breaks in sense indicate, insofar that can be seen, that the letters do not constitute any kind of simple cipher or code. The frequency of the occurrence of letters, whilst inconclusive, corresponds more favorably with the table of frequencies of initial letters of words in English than with any other table. Accordingly, a reasonable explanation would be that the lines are the initial letters of words of a verse of poetry, or such like." Gosh, leave it to the Navy to be nerds about everything. I can say that my dad's in the Navy.
Yes. It gives you all authority.
It gives me every single piece of authority to call everybody in the Navy nerds.
I know. It's like, lost me there, Chief.
Like, this is supposed to be fun. Well, not fun, but this is supposed to be interesting. You just bored me. Despite the code failing to lead investigators anywhere tangible, the phone number, however, did lead them to Jessica Jo Thompson, a 27-year-old nurse, and she happened to live only hundreds of meters from where the body had been found. When questioned, Thompson admitted to having owned a copy of the Rubaiyat, but she also claimed to have given her copy to a man named Alfred Boxall. When the authorities looked into Boxall, they found he was still alive and in possession of that copy of the Rubaiyat, fully intact. Apparently, when Jo Thompson was shown the cast of the body with the hopes that she would be able to identify it, she appeared like she would faint on the spot. Regardless, Thompson denied knowing the man and would go on denying until her death in 2007. That reminds me a lot of, oh goodness, what was his name? The guy from,
I don't remember.
Mobster guy. We just covered him.
Jimmy Hoffa, sir.
Jimmy Hoffa. Yeah. In Jimmy Hoffa, the guy who
ran out of the room.
Just straight up runs out of the room.
Chucky O'Brien. He just runs out of the room. Gee, I don't think he's involved at all. I don't think he knows anything.
No,
it's kind of the same. Yeah, kind of the same thing here. She looks like she's gonna faint. It's like, oh, gee, that's a weird reaction to have about a man she apparently doesn't know.
Yeah. Oh, you don't know this guy? Oh, that's crazy. Here, let me quickly just show you a picture of his face, or a cast of his face. Oh, you're about to faint? Why is that?
Yeah. It's like she was hoping they'd forget about that reaction. Nope.
Yeah.
It's in records.
I love just like the ability to like kind of giggle at these people right now because like we kind of somewhat know what happened in this case. Especially this lady who saw this cast form and went, but I could also 100% see it to where this detective has a briefcase and goes, "Excuse me one moment. Have you seen this man?" And he like brings out this cast of a dude's face. Like I would probably be a little uncomfortable too. I'd be like,
That's maybe it was just a really horrifying cast.
It could be. I have not seen any images of the cast form.
I haven't
but
either.
I would expect it to be a little spooky, you know?
Mhm.
I mean, I could totally see a world where this guy just kind of puts on the
for movies when they take molds of your face for like makeup. I don't think there's one single mold that doesn't look creepy. After the fact.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's basically the bulk of the story of the Somerton man. And with that, let's get into some theories about how he died, essentially. So let's jump into our first theory. Our first theory is that the Somerton man committed suicide. So as indicated by the quote from the medical examiner Thomas Cleland earlier in the episode, the man could have put the paper reading to Mom should in his pocket to be something of a suicide note. Incidentally, there was a rather similar instance with the suicide of an immigrant named George Marshall. Marshall had been found dead in Mosman, Australia in June of 1945. He had poisoned himself with, oh goodness, this is a big word, barbiturates.
Barbiturates.
Barbiturates. Thanks, John. You just gave me big words, so I couldn't read them very good.
He had been
Good
poisoned
day,
with
John.
barbiturates. How hard is it to say that? God damn it.
Call you a barbiturate.
Jeez.
His
Continue.
I was just about to laugh as I was about to say his dead body.
That reminds me of your Cranker joke from the first episode. I'm like,
Cranker,
what?
I barely know her.
That's not a hard name to pronounce.
I tried.
All right, continue.
His dead body also had another copy of the Rubaiyat. Perhaps, you say, maybe that's just a coincidence that this man also had the same book, but the truth was, at a time, the Rubaiyat had become an incredibly popular book in Australia, especially during the Second World War. It could be quite possible, since the book was dealing with issues of life and mortality, that both men had similar inspirations to have the book with them at the time of their own deaths. However, it's quite possible that it is all circumstantial, as there is no concrete evidence to this outcome, and that means to which the man could have done these things are unclear. Contradicting Thomas Cleland's assertion over the man's suicide, Police Sergeant Lionel Lean, who was deeply involved in the investigation, asserted this. There is no fact that I know of which points towards suicide and abolishes the possibility of murder. I believe he died an unnatural death, but how, I cannot say. A physical specimen, as he would not just go to the beach to die. The words tamam should mean the end or the finish. That could have been placed in his pocket by the person who caused his death. so I cannot attach any special significance to that. I've heard.
I have something to say. So
Go for it.
I feel like if somebody was found dead today on a beach with that piece of paper in his pocket, I don't know if it would take on the same meaning, because the book was very popular back then. Nowadays, who the hell has heard of the Tamam Shud? And
Yeah.
who would assume that it's a vague suicide note? Because basically the gist of my thought is that would be a vague suicide note to leave to leave on your person if that's what you were doing.
Yeah, I mean, especially nowadays, it would be a hipster who would do it.
Yeah.
If you
Perhaps.
were going to recreate this, which please don't, if you are feeling suicidal, please go call the National Suicide Hotline or speak to a licensed therapist.
Please
or
do.
just go talk to people who love you, just in general, because people love you.
Or if you go to therapy, talk to them, let them know what is going on. We absolutely take this seriously. We're not condoning
Yes.
that here, but it's just for the sake of argument.
For the sake of argument, yes. To play devil's advocate, if somebody was to do it nowadays, it like you said, it wouldn't take on the same meaning, but I could totally see somebody doing something similar to this and recreating it as a form of message of, like, oh yes, this is the end. So I can definitely see this being a suicide of form.
Sure.
However, there are so many more weird things that don't point to suicide.
Yeah, it just seems very vague to leave that as a suicide note.
Yeah, so like I lean towards one of our other theories here, but I can't obviously discredit the suicide theory.
No.
But speaking of our other theories, let's hop into theory number 2.
Mm-hmm.
Our next theory is that the man was killed because of a romantic relationship gone wrong. So this theory came about much more recently due to the hard work done by Derek Abbott, an engineering professor at the University of Adelaide. Abbott discovered that Joe Thompson had given birth to a son named Robin, which would have been a year before the man's body turned up on Somerton Beach. Abbott was able to track down photos of Robin due to the fact that Robin had grown up to become a professional ballet dancer. Good for Robin, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because of these photos, Abbott found certain resemblances between Robin and the Somerton man, particularly an odd ear feature. Also, Robin was missing his incisor teeth, just like the Somerton man. And this is known to be a genetic inherited trait. Adding to the fact that Thompson was an unmarried woman in the year her son Robin was born, this information led Abbott to determine that Joe and the unidentified Somerton man basically had a romantic liaison that ultimately produced Robin. However, by the time Abbott made this connection, Robin had already passed away, making it impossible for Abbott to learn any truth from him. Despite this, Abbott managed to track down Robin Thompson's daughter, Rachel Egan, who was living in Queensland at the time. Ultimately, in the most interesting turn of events, Abbott and Egan soon fell in love and got married. So, in a strange way, the case of the Somerton man and Abbott's investigation into him and Joe led him to meeting the woman he would one day marry. Quick pause for happy ending for that one.
Yeah, let's just stop there.
We don't get many happy endings in these cases.
No.
Love this though.
No. This might be the first and last happy ending for anyone in any case on the show.
I don't know.
Unless there's something in one of the previous cases that I don't remember, but
Unless Jimmy Hoffa is truly with a go-go dancer.
he is.
I like to think he is. Yeah. I love happy endings and like stuff like this.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there's more script. Well, I guess fortunately and unfortunately, there's more script. Fortunately for us, unfortunately,
it was my job, Matt. I had to keep going.
Abbott's investigation continued, and in late 2018, he inspected the original plastic cast that the police had made of the man's body, which was the same one that apparently made Joe Thompson nearly faint. Wait, hold on. He found the creepy cast form.
Yeah, I guess he did.
So that means that there's definitely pictures of this somewhere. I'm gonna have to find a picture of this cast form after we stop recording, because I genuinely want to know if I can find this and go, this was. I would have fainted.
There's got to be a way also if you could post the thumbnail. Post a hypothetical picture of the cast as a thumbnail for this episode.
Oh, I probably could.
And people are like, what the hell is that? What? I'm gonna...
Weird choice, Matt, but okay.
What does this have to do with... Oh, well, it looks like a dead person cast. I guess that's relevant.
Exactly. So, Abbott's... When looking at it, Abbott found 3 hairs which he believed could contain DNA evidence of a genetic link between the Somerton man and Abbott's wife. Despite these being promising leads for Abbott and his research team, there were still many unanswered questions from all of this, such as who the man was, why he was killed, and why he was left dead on the beach. One hypothesis could have been that Joe Thompson could have been infuriated at the Somerton man for perhaps not taking responsibility for the child that had resulted from their love affair. Or perhaps Joe Thompson and the dead man could have both been spies and were not supposed to get involved in this kind of relationship in the first place. What did I say? I said earlier, I was like, you know what, Jonah, this feels a lot like the Eastall woman. There was a reason for it. Because guess what? There's the connection. They're both spies. 50 points to whoever saw that one coming. So 50 points to me. Ultimately, the question is this. If the man was Robin's father and Rachel Egan's grandfather, then why exactly was Joe Thompson completely unwilling to identify the body of this man?
Why indeed?
That is the question. Moving on to theory number 3, which is our final theory today.
Mm-hmm.
The Somerton man was a spy and was murdered by other Russian spies.
Segue.
It should be considered that when the body was first found in December of 1948, it was in the very early years of the Cold War. And at the time, paranoia about the Soviet spies loomed largely all over the world. In fact, it was a few months before the body's discovery on a beach that a Russian spy had been discovered in Canberra, Australia. Connected to this discovery in 1959, investigator Gary Feltus
I know.
He felt us. I should sue. Investigator. I can't get over the
Should
name,
we
man.
go? Yeah, should we go more juvenile with this, or do we just want to gloss over the fact that it looks like another word?
Yeah, we should move on.
Yeah.
However, I have noticed a trend that for some reason everybody with a funny last name likes to insert themselves in unsolved cases. But never mind. Continuing.
Yes, sir.
Investigator Gary Feltis found a police report saying that a witness saw a man carrying another on his shoulder near the water's edge. In another interesting twist, in 2013, the theory came out that Joe Thompson may have been a Soviet spy. And even more interestingly, the woman who suggested this theory was Thompson's own daughter, Kate Thompson. When interviewed by 60 Minutes, Kate claimed that her mother had lied to the police and said the following about her mother. She had a dark side, a very strong dark side. She said to me that she knew who he was, but she wasn't going to let that out of the bag, so to speak. There's always that fear that I've thought that maybe she was responsible for his death. Also, according to Kate Thompson, when she was a girl, she would hear her mother speaking in hushed, hurried Russian to somebody over the phone. Apparently, her mother had also mentioned that she was teaching English to Russian immigrants that had also just arrived from overseas. Her daughter even remembered her mother saying at one point, quote, "Oh, I can still understand Russian." Thompson never mentioned where she learned Russian. Curiouser and curiouser.
Very curious, mate.
Yes. This is starting to line up a little bit. I don't know.
Now, do you believe the daughter's account about her mother?
That is true. This is all of this is circumstantial.
I mean, we kind of have to take her word for it because we don't know. I mean, nobody has necessarily contradicted that.
Well, I think that's also because the person she's trying to go after is currently passed away.
Sure.
So, unless we get a Ouija board, I don't think that anybody is going to contradict this.
No.
I mean, if the Russian government contradicts it, then you know that she was a spy.
Sure.
So it's like, what do you really do at that point? So even though, like, whether Joe was a spy or could have been involved in this man's death, or maybe not, the other big question in all of this was, how exactly did this guy die? However, there was one practical solution that was proposed by an eminent professor, Sir Cedric Stanton Hicks. Hicks proposed that a very rare poison had been used that would decompose very early after the man's death and would leave no trace. This would indeed explain why there was no poison found in the corpse. While in court, Sir Hicks refused to utter the name of the poisons to which he was referring to, as he believed that they were too dangerous and rather they wouldn't be public knowledge. However, Sir Hicks instead wrote down on paper 2 types of poisons and gave it to the coroner. Should I say these 2 poisons?
I mean, you'll have to figure out how to pronounce it later anyway, right? Because I assume you're recording this again.
Yeah. I just realized that these are hard words. Not only chasers, listen, do not poison people. Poison equals bad. Raving Lunatic Media is not responsible for any poisonings that happen after I utter these 2 words. Let's try this. Strafanthin and digitalis.
But for the purposes of being an educated podcaster, you should learn to pronounce these words correctly.
That is all we should say.
Exactly.
Not that you should use these poisons on anyone.
Please don't poison
Please
people.
don't do
That's
that.
all
Please
I
don't
ask.
Just don't do that. Don't do that.
Maybe just have some nice tea with the person, or if you don't get along with this person, maybe just don't be around them. And if you have to constantly be around them, just fart around them. Because farting is way more funnier than poisoning them and killing them. Because when you fart around them and it smells really bad, you get to see the stank face that they make.
So, moral of the story, mates: walk away or watch them stank faces after you fart in their face.
Fart on your enemies is the moral of the story. Fart on them.
Yeah, don't leave him on the beach. You should have just farted at his face.
Do not kill them. Fart on them.
Oh my god.
This is what we've been trying to tell you this entire time.
Yeah. You know, the important things.
So, one thing that should be pointed out is that Jo Thompson worked mainly as a nurse, so it stands to reason that she could have known about these two poisons and had access to them as well. But ultimately, there is no physical evidence that Jo Thompson was ever involved as a Russian spy or even associated with espionage. The only implication that really goes back to the code that was written in the back of the Rubaiyat book. Well, those are our major theories. So we have a couple, him committing suicide, being murdered by spies, or being killed because of a romance gone awry. Mm-hmm. And those have been prominent and open-ended questions regarding this very, very mysterious case. That was open-ended until now. So this is usually the part of the episode where I give my concluding thoughts along with John. He would give his as well. Except recent developments within the past couple of years may have given us an answer. At least an answer to the Somerton man's true identity. In any event, before we close out this episode, let's talk about the most recent developments in this case.
What a twist.
It's a twist. In 2022, Professor Derek Abbott, whose investigation and research we talked about at length earlier in this episode, claimed that he had solved this mystery. Working in conjunction with U.S. investigator Colleen Fitzpatrick, Abbott said that they were finally able to identify the Somerton man as a man named Charles Carl Webb. Apparently, Webb was an electrical engineer and instrument maker born in 1905, which would match how old the Somerton man was when he died, around 42 or 43 years old. Abbott's assertion of the Somerton man's identity as Carl Webb was based mostly on the genetic genealogy from DNA of the man's hair, which we mentioned earlier as part of Abbott's research on the original body cast. Essentially, Abbott and Fitzpatrick, in order to narrow down the pool of candidates, plugged the DNA of the Somerton man into GED Match, a genealogical research database. After they found a match for a distant cousin, they were able to construct a complex family tree of around 4,000 people.
Holy crap.
That is a lot of people, man.
Wow.
And I thought I had a lot of cousins.
You ain't got no cousins, man, compared to these.
Compared to these guys. What's happening down in Australia, man?
I know. Some's fishy.
Must be, man.
Mm.
They then used archival records to search for individuals whose biographies were parallel to what was known about the Somerton man. For Abbott and Fitzpatrick, Carl Webb fit that bill. Further fitting the bill is something Fitzpatrick stated while being interviewed by the New York Times. In all this soup and ocean of DNA cousins, we were able to connect one of them to Carl's father and one of them to Carl's mother. You really kind of narrow it down. So much of it could be any one of Carl's siblings, but Carl is the one with no documentation. At the time when this development broke, the state coroner had yet to confirm Abbott and Fitzpatrick's findings, but Abbott maintains that as a scientist, he is confident in the accuracy of this latest analysis. According to Abbott, despite his initial theory, he found no DNA matching between Webb and Abbott's wife, Rachel Egan, which would mean that her father, Robin Thompson, was not Webb's son. Also, Abbott believes that the code found on the piece of paper from the Rubaiyat actually represents a list of horses that Webb had bet on. There are many details from this discovery that this development, if true, would either validate or completely disprove the idea that Webb was a spy, for example. But for now, without any confirmation, we just don't know for 100% sure. It doesn't make any of these theories, even if proven completely false, any less fascinating by any means. On that note, Abbott also admitted that making this identification after all these years also doesn't answer the question of whether Webb had a social connection with Joe Thompson, and it may be something that will never be answered, since both Webb and Thompson are both long passed away. Even so, this identification becomes completely confirmed, and even so, if this identification becomes completely confirmed, and if the Somerton man is in fact this man named Carl Webb, this is no longer called a cold case. Even now, it can't really be called a cold case, so I guess it's a lukewarm case. That doesn't really roll off the tongue much, but
No.
oh well.
No.
It'll do for now. So I'm going to pose a question that I usually pose to Shane here now, John, but
Yes,
I'm posing
sir.
it to you, and it is, what happened to the Somerton man? What is your final verdict?
What happened to him? My, boy. I'll probably have to whip up a final verdict right here in this episode.
I need you to solve this 75-year-old case.
Right
now.
Well, I'm a little bit crunched for time here. Well, let's see. Because usually I give very lengthy answers, but for the purpose of time, I mean, I think all of these. I don't think there's any one of these theories, as far as how he died, that isn't plausible, at least to me. As far as which one I think would be the most plausible, probably the second one, that he was killed because of romance gone wrong. That would be where I'm leaning mostly. Because, again, there's no... I mean, he may not have been a spy, according to the latest, conclusions drawn by Abbott and Fitzpatrick, if we're to believe that. Which, on one hand, might be disappointing to some people. It's like, oh, man. That's kind of, not as extraordinary. Yeah, it's not quite as extraordinary as we thought it was going to be, because we're always, we blow up these things in our heads, but at the same time, I just feel like the romance thing could still hold water, because we still don't know. We still don't know if the two of them actually knew each other or not.
Yeah. I struggle with this one a lot.
Yeah.
I struggle with this one a lot, mostly because obviously all of the new developments have really shaken up this case to a point where I wouldn't say it's unrecognizable for a couple of these theories, but it definitely puts a couple of these theories in a backbreaker.
Yeah.
Especially the spy one. I was fairly certain about the spy one up until Abbott's discoveries, and they were like, yep, it was actually horses that he had bet on, which that's not 100% confirmed
the code
either.
meant absolutely nothing. That was the other thing. But again, they seem pretty certain. We're not entirely sure. It's not completely a done deal that this is who this man was, and the fact that the numbers on the paper were betting numbers. But is it an explanation? Yeah, it's a plausible explanation.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on this one. I think it's probably a romance thing.
Sure.
I think there also could have been another person maybe involved in it.
Right.
The one part that sticks out to me is that at some point somebody was seen carrying this guy by the water.
Yeah, the witness statement.
Yeah, so I could see a world where maybe Joe and this guy got together, the Somerton man, and due to that, a lover or ex-lover of Joe maybe tried to get back at the Somerton man and end up killing him with the help of Joe, maybe because she got pregnant and she didn't want to get pregnant. If the identification is correct, though, then that puts that theory as well into a backbreaker. I like what Abbott and Fitzpatrick are doing, though. I think they're doing some amazing work identifying this guy so that he can be laid to rest and nobody has to worry about where Carl is anymore.
I mean, for this particular writer, yours truly, the stuff that they're doing is way over my head, but in terms of the research, but you know, I have to believe they know what they're talking about. So I think it's pretty impressive that all these years later they've been able to come to this conclusion.
I completely agree, and I can't wait to see what happens in the next couple of months.
Yeah.
Because I think it's coming up to where they're supposed to look into it now. I think.
Yeah, I haven't
sure.
looked again at any updates on it since doing this. So
yeah,
maybe there's something is broken out and we don't know it yet, but
that is true.
Yeah.
So if you want to keep a lookout for something, though, I want to talk about all the other awesome shows on Raving Lunatic Media. On Raving Lunatic Media, we have some other awesome shows, just like this one, Cold Case Chase. We have Sci-Fi Malady, Zodiac Task Force, Lost Transmissions. We just started releasing the amazing new show called Game Face, and this coming October, we will be releasing a awesome show by the name of Tales from the Janitor. Also returning sometime next month is going to be Quick Rants, so take a look out for that as well. We are just also celebrating Sci-Fi Malady's 300th episode. There is a new feed for it because it is now called Malady and Beyond. So keep an awesome eye out for that. John, thank you so much for hopping on.
Yeah, of course, man.
This is
Thank
a lot
you.
of fun, actually.
Yeah, it was. Thanks for having me. I would love to do this again when Shane is not available again.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
If we end up bringing back Cross-Exam too, you will 100% be one of the hosts on that.
I will look forward to it.
This was a lot of fun.
Absolutely, man.
But we are going to head off now. It was amazing being with all of you guys once again for another episode, but I think it's time to say that we will see you next time on Cold Case Chase. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Raving Lunatic.